Hello, I'm Nez Lumley of Finextra, and we're here at EPAM's Banking Bite, and today I'm speaking to Matt Farrar of EPAM. And the theme of tonight's event was the 21st Century Bank Branch. So, of course, there was a lot of talk from people on the panel about the customer, and you really look at sort of aspects of the customer journey. I mean, how do you map the customer, like present and future then?
Sure. Well, I think a lot of the work that we do really is focusing on two aspects. So we have this phrase which is an outside-in approach to understanding the customer. So very often our clients will come to us with a set of business requirements that have been developed internally by the business. So the first thing we do is we would question whether they've been validated against the current customer. So we have a series of tools that we would use to go out and observe customers in the environment. So if you look at branches, for instance, we could sit and observe the way in which the customer's interacting with the managers, the tellers, and so on within that particular environment.
How the customer is acting right at the moment. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. So there's observational. We could also use similar tools to be able to look at the way in which customers are interacting with their services online. And really what we're trying to do with those observations is to get enough data then to see how we perceive customer is moving from the branch into the digital environments and then back to the branch, or if there are other mechanisms. So we also work with organizations that have physical products, so we also would observe how they use the physical product as well as the physical environment, the branch and the digital. And really what we're interested in is figuring out what are the opportunities or where the service is maybe broken across those things and whether we need to fix that now. So we can take a here and now approach and apply service design principles and design principles around how we map out that customer journey.
Yeah, I'd love to see that map.
Yeah, and they're very visual. So I think that's one of the benefits of using design as a strategic tool, because actually what we're very good is articulating those customer journeys. They aren't difficult to understand transcripts. They're very well articulated visualizations of those customer journeys, the pain points, the areas which there's a real challenge in that particular service. So that's the here and now approach. And then we find that that's great because we can start to analyze existing services with that approach. But then we're also asked to look maybe 2, 3, in some cases 5 and even beyond, in terms of how are the same customers going to interact with the services, what technologies may be more prevalent in the future that may also impact on that journey. So today we talk about digital and we talk about branch. In the future maybe we talk about how we may interact with artificial intelligence or how we may interact with a voice. So if you look at Siri, for instance, which is Apple, and if you look at Amazon's recent play, which is Echo, not many people have heard of that, but it's a real play to own that vocal space where I can communicate with a device and it will actually communicate back to me. And if you think about that scenario, we talked earlier about buying a house, for instance, and so if you really think about disruption in 5-10 years, really, do I need to go into a bank to get a mortgage? The ideal scenario would actually be, I use a platform like Rightmove. I go to see the house. Before I've even got there, it understands my location. The data's available, so it knows the credit rating, it knows who I work for. It is able to understand both, the health of the business that I work for. It is able to understand my salary, my wife's salary, lots of things about me. And so really, when I enter the property and look around and I've made a judgment about the physical property, as I'm there, it should be able to tell me whether I can get a mortgage based on all those parameters. And so we try and be as disruptive as we possibly can in the future to say, look, think about a doomsday scenario, think about a vision for your marketplace. So we're here and we're here. How do we get to a place where we need to move from this point to that point?
Yeah, I find it interesting that you're coming to this from a design perspective. I mean, when people think of sort of elegant design, they don't think of bank and financial services products. So how you look at the customer journey and these types of product design, how does that really impact financial services products?
I think if you focus on the word design first, we think about the way in which we use our senses to interact with the world, and 80%, the research suggests 80% of the way that we interact with the world is through our sight. So therefore it means that, to enjoy the experience, any experience, it needs to be, visually appealing, and it needs to be visually easy to understand. And very often complex products such as banking products, and we do a lot of work in investment banking and in wealth where there's a huge amounts of data to enable you to make the decisions, then design plays a really interesting part where we're able to take those complex problems and make them much easier and simple to use. So design is really about simplifying a process, and I think that's the real power that design has. And so banking is really important because it is perceived as being very complex. A mortgage, for instance, is quite a complex thing to commit to. There's lots of different, for a consumer, there's different rates. There's all sorts of data that is in danger of overwhelming you. So again, if you can visualize that,
not a product a customer buys every day or every week.
No. Yeah. So our role really is then to make it much easier to understand. And digital is a great channel to do that because you can take the data and you can really articulate and visualize that in the way that they understand and the way that they can share as well. So it's the ability to sit around and discuss information that prior would have been open to interpretation. Anything that's written, I can make my own interpretation of that compared to my wife, who we're trying to make a decision about the mortgage. So I think the more that you can visualize that as well using design, the more impactful that's going to be to help you make the decision. So it can be used in lots of different ways, or design can, to be able to influence, not just banking, but also other markets.